You're ready? So, you all right? Zach, give me my gap.
Boss?
I apologize.
I will be your drummer.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Hagan.
Present.
Councilmember Kerr. Councilmember Martin.
Present.
Councilmember Carmet.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Thisted. Present. Mayor Riley.
Present.
There are 7 members present.
Great. And now, will we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Were there any changes to the agenda anyone would like to see? If not, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Councilmember Hagenau,
So moved.
Seconded.
moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just for clarification purposes, if we want to pull something off of the consent, we do that at the time of consent?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now we move to communications to council. And again, I'd like to encourage anyone who would like to speak to council on any topic to please step forward, state your name, where you live or work, or your connection to Keystone, and you have 3 minutes. So with that, see Dr. Johnson.
Yep. Can you hear me okay? Dan Johnson, I live on Southern Ridge, and
Is the on button pushed?
There's no speak. No mic. No mic.
Are you? All right, so go ahead.
yeah, I work over in my house at the medical. My main concern is traffic driving behavior on Southern Ridge. I guess Tim, you kind of asked me, is it a speeding or enforcement issue? I guess in the grand scheme of things, the speed alone isn't what concerns me. What concerns me is drivers' refusal to yield over to allow pedestrians to walk there. I would say it's in many cases, in my experience alone. I would not say it's every single vehicle that I'm seeing, but there are enough. Like today, I walked through 2 people that will either move over. I don't feel that they're giving the full 3 feet of space. They're not slowing down. So as a pedestrian walking on the edge of the road, car passing at 40 miles an hour with a posted speed limit of 30. And the ones that do slow down often will roll the window down, scream an expletive, tell me to get off the road, and then speed off. So is this every vehicle? Is it enough that I think it's bothersome and concerning and a safety issue? I do. And I guess my last kind of thought to put forward is that as a person that I live on that road, I have a dog. I like to take evening walks as best I can. I'd like to use the paths and get out into nature. But there are times that using the roadway is the most efficient or the only answer. And I think that we should be allowed to have pedestrians on the road, or, great if in the future plan we can allow for sidewalks and stuff, that's great. But in the meantime, I think it's reasonable to have pedestrians on the road. And I'm just curious to have a conversation about how do we educate drivers to share that space, or how do we enforce it if they don't?
I'd like to ask the town manager to, if the council agrees, to look into that and get back to us.
Town manager had those exact same thoughts yesterday, as I was driving down Silver Ridge Road.
As do I when I walk down Soda Ridge.
And I walk on Soda Ridge as well. That's okay. Any other comments from anyone online? All right. In that case, I'll declare communications to council over. And now we have the consent agenda. I suspect Councilmember Hagenau would like to remove something from consent.
Yes, could I call up TOK 25-11 Class 2 permit for Expedition Colorado Race Keystone, please?
Or to discuss it.
Yes.
To
Yeah,
remove from consent agenda.
remove from the consent.
Those wordings were, call up would be a different issue.
Oh, my apologies for that.
But I understand. So you would like to remove a consent? Is there any discussion on that?
We need a second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to remove that item from the consent agenda. And where would we place it, Mr. Town Manager? Do you recommend?
I guess it would have to go under other.
Right. Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Councilmember Kerr?
I got ahead of myself. Go ahead and have the vote.
With no future additional discussion, I'll call the question. And all those in favor of removing TOK 25-011 from the consent agenda, please raise your hands. Opposed? And we'll, okay. 25-011, we'll cover it right after we the discussion and other as a fire impact fees. With.
Point of order. I moved to remove the MOU on street addressing from the consent agenda. Quite frankly, I'm not looking for a discussion. I just asked the town manager, give us a one-sentence review of what this is and why this is, because it is not in our, we have not discussed this today.
Second.
I think that would be simple.
This is a very standard form that everyone in the county has been operating on.
Sorry, point of order.
Yeah.
Are we doing that right now?
At second, right?
To remove it.
Don't we have to vote to remove it and then we
No,
can?
we can have discussion.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. Yeah. I just want to know what this is about and why.
It's so that we don't have 7 Soda Ridge roads in the county, 800 Soda Ridge roads when emergency responders get a call. The county's been operating in all the towns under this MOU forever.
Oh, we're being added.
We are being,
We vote? Can we vote no to keep it on the consent agenda?
Like it. I think
Well,
that's,
we have a motion to remove it from the consent agenda.
And we've had a discussion.
Well, and
there any other
we had a
discussion?
second, I believe.
We did.
So is there any other discussion?
And my question would be if we voted no on this, it would stay in the consent agenda and we could pass it with the consent agenda. All
Right.
questions of
Right.
that.
So all those in favor of leaving this item,
no,
or removing this item from the consent agenda, please say aye. All opposed from removing this item from the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Motion fails.
So
The next item is discussion of ordinances, and we're going into the,
we didn't vote on the consent agenda yet.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. I think we,
Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
so moved.
Member Kerr?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and we're approving the consent agenda with the removal of TOK 25-11. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion is carried. Now, the next item is moving on to the continuation of the public hearing of ordinance 2025-0-13. And with that, I'll ask the clerk to please read the item into the record.
Ordinance 2025-0-13, ordinance of the town council of the town of Keystone, Colorado regarding the regulation of pet animals within the town of Keystone.
At this point, I'll declare the public hearing again open. And the procedures that we're going to follow are that we're continuing the public hearing on the consideration of the ordinance regarding regulation of pet animals. The following are the procedures. First, we'll hear a report from the town manager, followed by questions from council members. Then we will take public comment on the ordinance. Following public comment, the council will be asked if they have additional questions for staff, and then the public hearing will be closed and we will deliberate. At this point, could you provide a presentation, Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, as long as I don't connect to my computer screen. So this proposed ordinance is significantly different than what was considered in the first reading. The entirety of section 5 was added, defining a dangerous dog and discussing the enforcement or control measures in such a time. It's one of the key pieces here, I think, is section 5A to small b, which I think we're pretty clear that a dog that inflicts bodily injury or severe bodily injury is a dangerous dog. Section B demonstrates tendencies that would cause a reasonable person to believe the dog may inflict bodily or seriously bodily injury upon or cause the death of a person or pet animal. It might be the one that people are concerned about. I think it's important to understand how important that word reasonable is in there. That reasonable will be determined by a judge if it comes down to that. So, dogs are dogs. And threatening behavior by dogs reaches a very large level and wide spectrum. And some dogs might just be doing a friendly yap and the person thinks that Cujo is coming to get them. That's not necessarily a reasonable expectation of the threat of the death, or threat of injury. So I guess let's talk about this section first. Are there any concerns? What are your concerns with this section 5 as written?
Any concerns? Councilmember Higgins.
Thank you. I just want to double check. I didn't notice any other substantive changes besides section 5. Is it correct to assume or to state that section 5 was the only change?
Section 5 was the only change, although I'm going to bring up a proposed one that I didn't enter into this, but just came to me the other day and see how you feel about that. But first, I'd like to see if there are concerns about section 5.
So you hit the nail on the head for me. I did think that 5A 2B, which is dealing with the tendencies that a quote reasonable person to believe may inflict bodily or seriously bodily upon or cause death by a pet or a pet animal. I think that's way too subjective. I mean, I work in an industry, right, where people are afraid of just the sight of a dog, like mortally afraid of the sight of a dog. And I do truthfully understand the point of reasonable person and that, but I just think it's way too subjective of a line in there. And I think that really what this, for me at least, what this section was intended to do was to really get at dangerous dogs, right? Not a dog growling and potentially being dangerous, because I don't want to codify something that could be seen in the future and used to persecute somebody for having a barking dog to the point where the dog would be deemed dangerous, named dangerous, and then could be euthanized by this ordinance that we're talking about. So I'm very against the verbiage as written. And
What's your suggested change?
I suggest removing it entirely and really focusing on the damage that the dog is creating.
Thoughts? We don't have a motion, but
We're still, no,
yeah, we're still in your portion. So keep.
So, yeah, I guess, my thought is there also this, this would stop someone from training an attack dog and threatening.
Well, that brings up another great point under 5A2C. I did have a question about that I think there should be some kind of exemption for professionally trained canines for security or policing purposes. As written, I don't see any exception for that. So if I was a police officer and I had a canine that was trained for taking down a suspect, according to this, as I read it, that dog could be euthanized.
No, because no reasonable person would feel that a trained police dog represents a dangerous.
Well, no, sorry, the section I was talking about, 5A2C, talks about it engages or is trained in animal fighting. And I think that a professionally trained dog.
But they're not trained for animal fighting. Police dogs aren't trained for animal fighting. They're trained for, not to go after other animals, but to go after.
I still think we need to have an exception in there for canines.
But that would be.
Aren't they considered police officers and underqualified immunity?
Yeah, yeah.
That's interesting.
I
I'm
will
asking the question because I'm not an attorney.
No, the dog doesn't have qualified immunity, so
Okay.
this is owning the dog, but that type of situation, that's not gonna, a police officer's dog is not gonna be charged with a dangerous animal. This language in the ordinance is from state statute. I mean, this is identical to what is in state statute. And so somebody could be charged in the town of Keystone under a state statute with this law.
Okay. I still stand by my point on 5A2B.
I think council should have.
100%, yeah.
Any other concerns with the new section 5?
Any other concerns?
I did have another question on 5B. It just says dangerous dog prohibited. Was that a error and was there supposed to be something else there?
There's a paragraph right below it.
Yeah, that's the title to that paragraph. C is enforcement and control.
Understood.
Any other question, Councilmember Parmet?
5A C3, we're banning foxes?
Good luck.
Hybrids are related to foxes.
Domesticated. I mean, there's a specific, I know this is just a weird thing, but I just happen to like read interesting articles in National Geographic where some breeders through several generations were able to create a docile domesticated fox. And they actually only sell them neutered so that you can't put like, I don't think anyone has a fox around here, but it's necessary for us to ban foxes.
Well, I don't think it's banning it.
But you can get that. The point is,
Isn't this just, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this just saying that a dog is including the
Yes.
hybrids, not banning?
Yes.
Right. Okay, I misinterpreted. Thank you for that clarification.
Councilmember Haganau?
Thank you. Another question, 5C1, it talks about impoundment by animal control officers if in violation of this section. This seems to be, and I was wondering if there's an intentional purpose behind this. This deviates from the lower section, talking about quarantine and isolation measures. And I just, for me, I think we should align the quarantine and isolation measures as the same process for the dangerous dog process instead of just immediately impoundment. I think it should still be reworded to say dangerous dogs shall be subject to immediate quarantine and isolation as explained in section 8.b. And that way it can align the process and make it easier for animal control officers and to have discretion too.
well, 8B gives, dangerous dogs are a different level than a possible rabies situation here. And there, other than this, there's much higher possible civil penalties, possible other criminal penalties that might be related to this as opposed to possible exposure to rabies. And when we have to consider the victims here to be dead honest. When we've read about dog attacks in Summit County in the past, there have been some horrific dog attacks, and there have been some owners who have tried to say, oh, he's a good dog, he's never done that before, I can't believe he permanently disfigured your face. Let him just stay with me.
Well, the same trust that we're putting in our law enforcement to have the discretion on if it's a dangerous animal or not, I think we should still put the trust in them to be able to determine the proper level of quarantine or isolation that's needed for those animals.
With preferment that the owner keep.
Not with preferment with either one, giving the decision to the animal control officers and the discretion.
See, the problem with the risk is so high. With a dangerous dog, they've already demonstrated a degree of irresponsibility as an owner to have resulted in that situation where it is. I mean, it's up to you. We can do whatever you guys want, but you'll find almost all other communities when dealing with dangerous dogs, there's no question the dog goes to the pound. But it's up to you guys as a council.
Any other questions for the manager?
Well, I have one other.
Well, we'll go back.
Are we going section by section, or am I allowed to jump forward to rabies tax? Because I can't figure out if we're just talking about the section that was revised or if I'm allowed to bring something else up.
We've been only talking about the section
You can bring something
that's been,
if it's a question for me.
It is.
Okay.
Well, it's a
Go ahead.
general question. So I apologize that I didn't bring this up before, but sometimes I have to percolate on stuff like this and really digest it. And I'm wondering if there's any wiggle room in the rabies tag section. Full disclosure, my dogs don't wear rabies tags because the rabies tags that are manufactured are for giant dogs in this county. They're not for little dogs, and my smallest dog weighs under 5 pounds. And so her rabies tag would drag on the ground. I'm happy to carry proof of the fact that my dogs have been vaccinated, but they don't wear rabies tags. So can we put an exception in there if you can provide proof of rabies vaccination? Not necessarily wearing the tags.
I would not see a problem with that as long as it were defined or have such tag on.
Or
Such
paper
proof,
or
such proves the car
That, yeah,
in the owner's immediate possession.
I would actually agree with that.
and I'm sorry to be self-serving, but.
No.
Would this not be akin to the situation where somebody is asked by a policeman to show you driver's ID? Oh, whoops, it's in my other pants and they give you leeway to be able to prove that afterwards, so.
I don't want to
This makes
rely on
sense.
their discretion. I would prefer if you could put it in there.
It
Or proof of.
could be, if
I would agree.
you the council, I don't see how that's that big an issue. And I totally understand. One other thing I'd like,
I just wanted to comment that like it's not self-serving when we see examples in our own lives and bring it to the council.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to apologize for that.
one other thing, maybe to consider for the council is section 4B, no. Yeah, section 4B, which says all animals on paved public pathways, public boardwalks, on plazas or other public areas, or such areas are being used for town permitted public gatherings shall be restrained by a means of a leash, not voice control. I wonder if the council would consider adding the phrase after public, to read on paved public pathways, public boardwalks, in plazas or other public areas, ... or in such places and times as designated by the town manager. And that's just in case there's a situation popping up where there is clearly a situation. Okay, let me give you a good example. The school district often comes out to the parcel of open space in the town on the corner of Montezuma Road and Snake River there. They bring like all the fifth graders, I think it is, out and teach them water science.
Yeah.
I think at such a time, the town manager would like to designate your dog has to be on physical leash.
I think that's fine.
That makes sense.
My one question, I agree with the notion there. My one question that I think Councilwoman Kerr had previously brought up is what does signage look like? How do we communicate that out to
Thank you.
the town? Is there a billboard that the town manager has designated this area as leash?
So
now?
exactly, as a council member, you say to me, make sure that that is adequately signed and noticed when such a situation occurs.
So is there an anticipated cost associated with that?
Councilmember Kerr.
It strikes me as very, very minimal cost to create some kind of pop-up sign that you can use as necessary. But I'll remind you that I asked for signage on the rec park for our visitors who do not understand. And if you can make that so, then that would be equivalent.
Absolutely, I think it's very important, especially since most people on the rec path are coming from the county rec path where it's a different.
It may or may not.
Entirely, and there's no line, there will be no sign saying down of Keystone and all dogs on this rec path required to be real leashes. We don't need voice control.
And that's, by the way, I believe the county requirement too,
Okay.
on the rec path. It is
So we're not out of line, but I just want to make sure that visitors are not surprised.
Yeah. That's my report. Unless you have any
All
other
right.
questions for me.
And now, we have an opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak on this ordinance today? Anyone online? Seeing none, I'll declare the public comment period over and also declare the public hearing over, and now we will deliberate, and now we can address your concerns, Councilmember Hagenow. And I think we have a couple of options here as we go forward. If we agree that we want some changes, I think we probably need to first agree on what changes we'd like to see, and then I would like to see another draft come out of that versus trying to approve that in the blind, if that's acceptable.
That works for me. Would it be helpful for the council for me to kind of go back and do a hot list of mine?
Well, let's do them one by one and we'll get a thumbs up, a thumbs down.
Okay. So section 5A 2B.
Let's be fine. So let's just start at the top and work down through the
All right.
concerns. So first one would be the addition in the requirement of physical leashes of the town manager designation.
Yes.
Hagenow, this was the entirety of section 8.2B removal, correct?
Yes, this paragraph saying demonstrates tendencies that a reasonable person.
Yeah, can we discuss?
Let's discuss it.
And
Ms. Sullivan?
I actually have I have run into folks that are just paranoid dogs and, and now I guess this language is not saying they are the reasonable person, right? So they would say, hey, that dog needs to be impounded, right? And then someone else would be the reasonable person. Is that correct?
Mr. Town Manager, can you address that?
Yeah, the first person to make that judgment would be the responding officer, and then it would be the town clerk.
So if I understand your concern, it's that, they've listened to this person who's crying right now. And it's hard for them to say, oh, well, that dog is not vicious. how do we change that though? I mean, I understand the concern, why the language is here. It's hard to just delete it.
Well, so I understand too why it's here, but my concern is that we're talking about such a serious issue here, right? Being deemed a dangerous dog is not just a name, it could lead to the killing of the dog. And so I like, yes, well, if a dog comes up to Dan might love dogs, but somebody else should be unreasonable, somebody else should be crying about it. And then we could have a police officer that grew up and had a bad experience with a dog, so they could deem that as a dangerous dog. I think it's way too much of a gray area, especially when we're talking about the euthanasia
Okay.
of a dog.
But wouldn't, Mr. Town Manager, wouldn't, even if the police officer made that determination, the decision on euthanasia would still go to a judge?
Okay, so there'd be two people that would be
Yeah.
reasonable. So they could potentially sue too.
Do you have a mean dog?
But
No. And so, but with that designation, right, if we did keep the immediate impoundment, right, you're then taking away somebody's dog based on the deeming of them being a potentially dangerous dog. And so you're removing somebody's dog or property from them without due process.
council member,
Well, they can do this.
I'm sorry I'm being dim, but I understand you wanted some consistency between different sections in regards to impoundment and I don't know what the other term was in the other section.
Yeah, so
quarantine.
not to get ahead, but 5C1 is the one that's about.
What is the alternative to impounding a dog that has been brought up as potentially being dangerous? If you're not allowing it to be at the discretion of somebody who's reasonable.
So Section 8 talks about quarantine. Any animal which is bitten or suspected of biting a human being or other animal may be placed under observation for a period of 10 days from the day of the bite. The procedure and place of observation shall be designated by the animal control officer or other investigating officer, with the preference being given to confinement at the owner's premise. If the sole judgment of such officer, the owner can be adequately assured that the animal is confined. And it goes on for a couple more sentences. So by that, it's conflicting, right? Because we're talking about an animal that's bitten another human or another animal. So by then definition, it'd be, or I don't know what the technical legal term is, but it's conflicting with what's mentioned above. So in Section 8, it's talking about that it could be held in the observation of the owner's premise, but then up above, it's basically saying if it's caused, if it's caused bodily injury, that it would be immediately impounded. So I would like some alignment on what that looks like.
Comments, Mr. Town Manager?
Well, the quarantine, it's not just for any, dangerous dogs are not just for any bite. I've been bitten by my dog, it's punctured the skin, I've not required any medical attention from those situations. It's always been my fault, first of all. But it's, it wasn't even like reaching for a bowl of food, but wrestling around with your dog. Your dog can still bite you, or can bite your friend or something, and rabies is a concern anytime there's any sort of puncture of the skin. So by definition, if you read bodily injury requiring medical treatment, it's been something more than it's been something quite serious. Quarantine is more for those parts where it's, I don't want to assign intention to the dog. That's not what we're trying to find, what the dog's intention was, but really it is. You can really tell, did the dog intend to attack a person or did?
I respectfully disagree. How can you tell? Did you talk to the dog? Like, we're not going to ask the dog a question if they meant to attack a human. I think that goes back to the reasonable and prudent person's judgment, and that is subjective.
I absolutely can tell when my dog accidentally bites me because he feels immediate remorse, rolls to his back, and doesn't continue to attack me. But we're trying to address two very different concerns here. One is a disease, and one is the temperament of the dog.
My concern with the change is that I have seen numerous dogs who charge you. All right? They weren't controlled by the owner. If they were under voice control, it failed. Let the police officer make that determination, whether that police officer believes it was a dangerous animal or a one of a kind, or I'm overly sensitive. Then they would have the decision to determine whether a citation, as in all of these, the citation would be issued. And if the citation is issued, then that means it's going to go before a judge. And then if that police officer's made that determination, do I really want that animal out within the community again? If the owner was already showing a lack of ability to control that dog, do I want that dog potentially out walking in the community until you've had the determination of the case?
I would suggest, I mean, I have sympathy for that, being a dog owner myself, but I do think that we have to fall on the side of the people first and then the dog second. We have protections for the dog at two levels, the police as well as the judge. So to me, I feel like we keep the verbiage in, and I would actually, on the second item, kind of agree with our town manager that there is a difference between the two. And while it may appear to be conflict, we could simplify and maybe it's conflicting. I don't think it is. It is two different situations. And so my suggestion is that, my personal suggestion, I'm comfortable with the wording as is, considering the changes we've talked about.
Councilmember Kerr.
In addition to the concern that Councilmember Hagenow brought up about losing your dog for some unknown period, you have to pay those fees. So I think that's worth considering, but that's why I'm glad we had this discussion. In the end, I do think we need to be more concerned with the potential victim or the person who is truly frightened. And maybe if we have good communication about this policy, we can send a message to the dog owners to control them rather than handling it after the fact.
So I do have another question. It's on.
Could you let him?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I definitely see both perspectives here. I think obviously you want to end to the victim, but ultimately what this policy is mostly looking at is what's safe for the public looking forward. And then there's got to be some respect for the dog owner as well. People love their pets. I wish that there was someone from animal control or law enforcement here to kind of speak to their field experience and interpretation of this. Can I ask council if you can offer any clarity on the difference between these two? Because we've certainly heard Mr. Town Manager's perspective, which I very much appreciate. Do you see anything particularly legal here?
I can talk a little bit about prosecution of these type of cases. I mean, I agree that the animal control police officer is going to use discretion. They work with these dogs and have these situations all the time. Maybe not all the time, but frequently. I think they know when somebody has a heightened level of fear versus someone who is reasonable. I have seen and heard about some horrible, horrible dog incidents. And I'd hate for you to get in a position where there isn't a regulation like this, where there's a dog that shows aggressive tendencies and the officer can't do anything about it. And then you have an incident where the dog really hurt somebody. Yeah.
And I don't want to quote you wrong, but didn't you say that this is state statute? So where would there ever be a situation where an officer would not have the legal ability to prosecute under this?
Well, I will say it is state statute, so this is, it's been tested in state court. I will say these are probably not the cases where the district attorney wants to be prosecuting these types of situations. They have other cases that they take on, higher level cases, and sometimes these types of cases fall through the cracks.
If the charge, correct me if I'm wrong, if they're charged with a state statute violation, it goes to county court,
Yes,
not our municipal court.
yeah. And there is another layer of review, and that's by the prosecutor. So the prosecutor also takes a look at what the evidence is, talks to the victims, any witnesses, and they can decide not to prosecute the case.
So under 5C2, it says, quote, upon conviction or court determination, the court may order. What is the legal difference between conviction and court determination? Like we had talked about how there's two levels of protection. It goes to the police officer and then it goes to the judge. Does that
That could be a
reaffirm?
plea. Court determination could be a plea.
Okay.
Yeah.
No contest, no contender. It serves as a conviction, but
We've discussed the potential removal of that paragraph. And can I just get a thumbs up and thumbs down on whether we would support the removal of the paragraph? All those in favor of removing the paragraph, please say aye or raise your thumb. All opposed? It stays. What was your next one, John?
The deviation from quarantine and isolation measure, we've talked a lot about that as well. I'm okay to do the thumb up, thumb down. It seems like.
All right, all in favor of let's do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, what do we,
All in favor of keeping the language the way it is today in here?
I think we need to go back, I'm sorry.
So what I had proposed is that there is a different way of, back up.
I can sum this up, I think, quickly. Under the dangerous dogs, the dog gets impounded and goes to the pound.
Okay.
Under quarantine, which is what Councilmember Hagenau is expressing, he would like to use near the language there. The responding officer has different options on what to do with the dog. Can impound the dog, can allow the owner to keep the dog quarantined at their own house, or can allow quarantine in an animal hospital.
And what's your recommendation?
If I may say, my argument is that if we align with the quarantine language, it allows more flexibility for the animal control officer to do what's right in the situation. We've talked a lot about using discretion, and I think that this would allow for the discretion to be done correctly instead of just 100% impounding every single dog. Where I think that it's proper to impound most of them, yes, but it does not require it. Is that clear?
Is there other discussion before we do a thumbs up, thumbs down? So how many would like to leave the language as it is today in this draft? 4, how many would like to change the language, along what Councilmember Hagenhouse talked about? 4 to 3? 4 to 3, language stays. Next one.
That was it.
All right. And you had one, Mr. Town Manager?
Well, that we got a unanimous.
We already got- Yes, sir. Are there any other recommended changes?
The one tag.
Oh, the tag, yes, thank you.
Seems so insignificant.
What would the? Where is it?
Section 7C.
C.
So after it says the owner of the animal shall attach to the collar of the harness or carry physical evidence
Produce,
that such a tag was issued in exchange,
produce.
produced or produced.
Evidence.
I don't think we wanted physical in there though, right? Like it was proof of it. It could be a picture of the tag.
Yeah, on the phone.
Produce proof or shall produce physical proof that such a tag has been weared.
Question.
Would be at the end of there would be the last language, or produce after jurisdiction in the state, or produce physical evidence that such a tag has been issued.
So permit.
I think there needs to be some sort of immediacy there because there, in the case of a bite, there's a need for medical decision-making on what sort of treatment that can revolve all over. Do we have the animal and is there proof of vaccination?
Produce upon demand proof of such.
Yeah,
Okay.
So any further discussion on that? How many would be in favor of including language as discussed of to allow for not having to have a tag, but to require the owner to be able to provide proof of vaccination
On demand.
on demand? So that's the one change that's been recommended. Two, we have the two changes, you're correct. Do we have language that could support those, or do we need to continue this for another meeting?
If our attorney will, her opinion, my thought, so we'll go back to the first change, which is for the sentence where it says public boardwalks on plazas are other public areas, while such areas are being used for town permitted public gatherings, then there will be the addition of this language, or such areas is designated by the town manager.
Can I have a motion to add that to the, if the council's comfortable, to add that, make that amendment to the, we're not there yet, never mind.
Yeah.
No, we closed the public hearing, we are there.
We haven't had a motion on the table.
We don't have a motion on the table
To approve.
approve. Then let's talk about the second one, and then whoever makes a
And
motion.
the second one will be at the end of the section 7C. After the last word state would be or produce proof upon a demand that such a tag has been issued.
Councilmember Sullivan, and I'll ask the attorney,
Well, then,
are those changes legally sufficient?
Yeah, with the motion, if you want a
Yeah.
motion to approve the ordinance with two amendments.
this was good. Okay, and I move to approve this motion with the recommended wording from the two amendments that we just discussed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the item? Hearing none, I will ask the clerk to please call the roll for the vote.
Councilmember Hagenow.
Approved.
Councilmember Kerr.
Approve.
Councilmember Martin.
Approve.
Councilmember Corbett.
Yes.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Approve.
Councilmember Vista.
Approve.
Mayor Riley.
Approved.
There are 7 votes to approve.
Thank you. The next item is, again, the second reading, public hearing for ordinance 2025-0-14. And I'll ask the clerk to please read the title into the record.
Ordinance 2025-0-14, an ordinance of Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, amending ordinance 2024-0-07, adopting short-term rental regulations to establish requirements for parking diagrams and requiring contact numbers to be provided as a direct number.
At this point, I'll declare the public hearing open. Procedures that we'll be following for this public hearing to address ordinance 2025-0-14 regarding regulations related to short-term rentals is the same procedure that we followed for the previous second hearing. So we'll be following those procedures. And at this point, with the town manager, please give us an introductory presentation.
Yes, I'm going to throw this right back to our town clerk, and that is you, Lou. I do have some concerns with section F2H. I will let her discuss that.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Town Council. My name is Maddie Cielo. I'm the town clerk. Today we're looking at the second reading of ordinance 2025-0-14. Between the first and second reading, the update that was recommended from the first, after the first reading was the addition of the following language to section G2A, which is one parking pass per allowable parking space as submitted in the parking plan and application that includes the address or unit number of the property shall be provided to all renters upon check-in or display on the dashboard. So that is the only thing that has been changed in the ordinance at this point between first and second reading. I will note that we have received some public feedback since the publication of the packet from property management companies related to the requirement for a parking diagram. And there have been concerns that this close to the application period, it would be a big lift for property management companies to add in these parking diagrams. I would estimate that it might take them 10 minutes to draw up these parking diagrams and then insert them.
Application.
I think when we initially had this conversation, we were under the impression in the conversation that condominiums were already providing these diagrams to people. But it seems that that may not be the case for all or many of the condominiums. So this is another consideration that staff would like you to take into account when you look at this. I think from a staff perspective, if there are specific properties that we know we're having lack of clarity with, we can have those conversations with them when they're doing that renewal process this year and make sure that their parking plans are more explicit and have those requirements for where the parking is located be very clearly indicated. But that is obviously up for the council to discuss. But I just wanted to put that all out there for everyone. And if there are any questions, we are happy to answer.
Councilmember Hagan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And please, staff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we talked about this last time in that a management company that say managed, and I'll just use Gateway where I used to live for an example, manages 10 units in Gateway with unassigned parking in the garage would be able to submit one parking diagram that is the same for all 10 units and could literally just be a diagram of the garage, saying park anywhere. Is that accurate?
In a way, they still have to submit that 10 times for each application.
Okay, is that, okay.
But it could be the
Exact same, okay. And then is it, thank you. And then is it also accurate that we had talked about, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, that for folks that are not using underground accommodations for their parking, that they could simply take a screenshot of Google Maps and highlight where the parking is, and that would suffice for a parking diagram? Or draw it on a piece of paper. Is that accurate? Okay. So there is no requirement for professional or time-consuming diagrams necessarily.
Time consuming is also
Relative.
relative.
Yeah.
One of the people who, property management, operates like 500 properties. So even if they're using the same diagram for every single one of them, well, they don't, but there is still a slight time component for them to identify it, and even a couple minutes over 500 is a whole lot of it.
Council members, just to,
I'm sorry, I'm gonna be polarizing. I still feel like this is a reach on we know the property managers don't want this to pass. And because we prolong this, I feel like they're grasping at straws. There needs to be accountability for parking. And I can give you two very clear examples from the last 2 weeks. With the variance that we passed over in, what is the official, Elk Crossing neighborhood. I've driven through there just out of curiosity during some of the peak weekends, and there are so many cars illegally parked by no parking signs. And then if we don't have these requirements for passes and parking diagrams, everybody can be like, oh, gee, shucks, there's no accountability because I wasn't informed. I just think we need to move on this now. And then over on Alders Lane this last weekend with a notorious rental house on the corner, there were 15 cars illegally parked along the road, making it go down from a 2-lane road to a one lane road. There has to be a higher level of accountability.
isn't there a method to address that? If they're on the street of,
It's not.
that's a law enforcement issue for ticketing. In addition, folks who are gonna make that complaint eventually anyway, they'll have the pass on the windshield to be able to identify where they are. They call that into the hotline, and it's very clear for those communities where that issue is. And the question is, when we have this affects, where we're having these parking issues, affects a very small number of communities within Keystone. So we are causing resources to be expended now in a very short period of time. Resources to be expended to put diagrams for everything for associations and large complexes who don't have an issue. Because in that parking plan, they have to identify verbally that, yeah, you park in any of the association's open parking. That's a requirement in here already. So in those cases, you probably don't need a parking diagram, but you do need if there's an issue with a particular property, as the clerk indicated, there may be they can go back and deal with that particular short-term rental property and handle it. Councilmember Permit.
Councilmember Hagenow, I think, is correct that this is a pretty low burden on an individual basis, and town manager is correct that if you are managing 500 units, it's a little bit more, but you're also getting paid for 500 units. So the overall burden is relatively low, and I think the purpose for this is to try and prevent having to cause calls to the hotline. We want people to know where to park and not to be a burden to their neighbors. But Mr. Mayor makes an excellent point that some places don't have the issue, but some places do. And the solution isn't necessarily to wait for it to be a problem and wait for phone calls and complaints. There should be some responsibility involved here. So I would suggest that if there might be room for certain large condo organizations that don't have a problem and have a working system, if you want to make an exception for that, okay, but I think overall, this is something that is needed for preventative purposes.
As a middle ground, would we be able to or be willing to consider that if it's the same exact parking diagram for the large complexes that have shared parking garages, that they don't have to submit the picture 10 times? I mean, to be honest, I don't really see that being a huge time savings, but if it makes, if it's a compromise that might make our rental provider partners feel better, that'd be something I'd be willing to support.
To tell us, staff is completely neutral on this opinion. We just want a system that works. What happens when we still, we need at least one diagram from every manager in a building, right? So we'd still have multiples, but that's a different situation. That kind of makes it tougher on staff, because then the staff has to go look at the application that doesn't have the parking permit or parking diagram and figure out, was a parking diagram submitted for this address? So that actually creates significantly more work for us, and we don't manage it.
We're talking about if you accept even 5 minutes of work, because you have to go into every STR application, and you've got 500 units, that's 2,500 minutes. Divided by 60, that is 40 hours of additional work between now and application submission in 3 weeks. Councilmember Sullivan.
Yeah, I just, one of the things that's confused me as we've gone through this is that there's really two issues. One is we're worried about people, short-term rentals and people parking where they're not. The other one, which is completely different, is lack of enforcement on people on the streets. But I think we should kind of keep that separate. That's a different issue that we should address separately. And like the party that I wasn't invited to on Alders was actually, if it's the one I know of, it was not a short-term rental person.
That is a short-term rental house that constantly has that overflow parking all over the street.
Well, is that the one across from me?
No, it's the one up on the corner.
Yeah, down to the right. But I think that we do need to address enforcement separately. The staff, I guess I would call it a compromise, that we look at the problem areas and we know where the problem areas are because we've had the calls, that we address it with those individual units. And then if there are more that start to impact it, and then if I'm reading this correct, what I heard, what you said, Maddie, is that the next year we'll say, well, this is a reflection of whether we're going to approve it or not. And we'll continue we'll add people, restrictions on them that they need to add more parking. They need to give more data if they want another license. Is that kind of the compromise that you've suggested?
Right, currently we approve a parking plan from people, and if we find that that parking plan that was submitted in the past is not sufficient in the information they provided in future years, in order to approve that parking plan for their short-term rental license, we could require that they provide more clarifying information and provide something like a diagram or more explicit verbiage writing out where people can and cannot park.
Because what I've heard in comments from other council members and the public is that there are a couple areas that are known for problems right now. And I would suspect that we would be focused on those as we look at renewals for this next, and I would even go beyond that and say, we need to address that now. So those are my comments.
I would like to ask again staff a question. If you handled it as part of an ongoing process, you mentioned address it in the next renewal. Why could not that be addressed immediately with the owner of the STR or the management company and simply say, it's clear we don't have, the parking plan isn't adequate, so we require you to update that parking plan. And if they don't update the parking plan, then you have a violation and you go after
I would have questions just about our initial approval of that parking
Right.
plan. But I do think we could at least start the conversation with them to make the change immediately and then have a conversation with the town attorney and town manager if they were resistant.
We're hanging on.
Thank you. Could you remind us of, how many weeks or months this proposal has been presented, to us, with the parking diagram requirement?
We had the first reading of this ordinance at the last meeting in July, and we began discussing generally short-term rental regulations back in May. But the final direction for the parking diagram came at the end of June at the work session.
Okay, so if I heard you correctly, from the end of June until now would have been time that, could have been spent on creating this parking diagram, so it's not like this is the first time they've ever heard about that.
I think that's a little unfair to say that people could have been preparing for something that might become a law.
Okay.
The comment that we received came from a property manager who was responding to first reading and provided that comment, which staff provided to all the council members. Councilmember Kerr.
Bottom line, that is the entire purpose of the first reading, to bring to the community's attention that we're thinking of passing this law. And is there something we're not thinking of? I know we've given it a lot of thought, but what matters is what we hear from the community as well as we continue to think. I think a compromise situation is appropriate. We know that there are areas that have no problems with parking because they have so much. That may change in time, but at this point, I agree, it's not an onerous requirement, and yet for those places, it's not an obvious impact. It doesn't really change anything. If we focus on those areas we know are a problem, could you clarify one more time, how would we do this? So we understand what we're thinking about.
Well, for places that we already know that we do not have clarity on specific parking situations, in this year's renewal process, we can ask those individuals if their parking plan is not explicit and clear and where people are allowed to park. And we look at the complaints that we've received in the past and say, this really wouldn't provide what we're looking for when we need to address these complaints. We would say, hey, we need you to revise this parking plan if you want us to approve your license.
Or we could have an obligation like, your verbal parking plan might be adequately clear to an attorney or a community development director. We've received complaints as a condition of your renewal. You are going to have to produce a diagram and distribute it to all your renters.
To follow up on that, thank you. What we have heard also is it's sort of like making more work for town council versus making more work for property managers. So my question is this an undue amount of time that would be required of you, or is it worth it to off-put, or whatever the right word is, to prevent the problems that you already know we've had in these particular areas?
If we are already having problems with a particular license or understanding a parking diagram, it would be time spent that I'm already spending interacting with those people.
And Madam Attorney, is it appropriate to have different requirements for different areas?
I think that would be okay to have. I mean, what is the differentiation for the different areas?
Experience.
Problem? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would only be on renewals.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be fine.
But we would address these issues immediately and say your renewal is going to be at risk because we've received these complaints. We think you should take steps.
We require you to take steps.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
Could we also require this for all first-time applicants and then require it next year for all renewals?
Well, let's
Because
talk
I-
about this year.
Well, what I'm trying to get at with this, and maybe I didn't, but I truthfully think this is what we're talking about as written is where I'd like to see us go. And I don't believe it's an undue onus to have this diagram, but I do understand and I'm listening to the feedback that's given by the management companies. But I think that there is an equally loud feedback given about the parking situation for a lot of STRs. And so I think that if we can reach a compromise that addresses both the concerns of the current issues, gets diagrams for all future STRs and then all renewals next year. And for me, that kind of hits, if you will, all the major feedback stakeholders. The concerns that it's too much of an onus for the next 3 weeks, but also is laying an actual path to getting this resolved.
Councilmember Permit.
I think if you go with a complaint-based system, you miss some of the preventative measures, but if you don't go with a complaint-based system, then you get into kind of this numbers like who are requiring it for and who we aren't. So let me ask a question, because I suspect that some of the worst issues are in single-family home / townhome neighborhoods and not in condo complexes. And so perhaps we could go with a complaint-based system, but also have a blanket requirement for single-family home and townhome areas. Poke holes in that idea, please.
That was kind of my proposal 20 minutes ago, and I believe staff said that that would be a major uplift or time commitment. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
now 20 minutes ago, you said one plan for condo complexes, and that would be the max.
So if we just omitted and not did the one plan, if we just omitted, like Councilmember Cormatt said, would that be
If
easier?
we just had the parking plan or description, including a parking diagram for all single-family homes and townhomes. I believe it.
I'm comfortable with that. I think it's a compromise, but I still would like to see in the future a parking diagram for every single unit.
If there's no problems, why are we putting a requirement out there that we're solving something that doesn't exist?
I think it's advantageous for those management companies to have a plan or a diagram that they can share with their renters anyways. And I think that a lot of reasonable, prudent management companies already have those diagrams that you can use. And so just submitting that would be a formality.
But those property management companies in the parking plan have verbally identified where people can park. Councilmember Pfister.
I mean, Councilmember Sullivan brought up a salient point when we're talking about enforcement. And I feel like we're chasing our tails because unless we have a policy, we can't enforce it. And so I feel like this is much more enforceable when it is an issue. If we just dot them and cross them and require it to begin with.
Can I recommend a compromise?
Mhm.
As I've said numerous times, councils exist in 350-year-old towns because laws change. So we could go with the compromise recommended by Councilmember Parmet, where starting now, all single-family homes and townhomes will require a parking diagram, and we can see how it shakes out. in the condo complexes next year. And if there's no problem with that, there's nothing we need to fix. If we're finding there is parking problems in condo complexes, then we can make that a problem. Fix it.
We've discussed this a lot. And we are in the, I believe, I've closed the public hearing. So now we're into, have I closed or have I not?
Yeah, okay.
We have not had the public.
We didn't open.
All right. So, or the public comment. So is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? You may speak and we'll determine whether we'll answer.
I think it's, Tim,
You agree that the issue where it arises is primarily in single-family homes and townhomes and not so much in condominiums. So I can support that. The question I have, and this is the issue that we run into, is if there is a parking diagram for a townhome or a single-family home, does that mean that we could call STR to enforce parking that is not in alignment with that diagram? Because today, STR will only enforce if there's more than enough total number of cars allowed, and they can park anywhere. And if they're parked someplace they're not supposed to park, then it's on me to enforce that, which is a problem. Because we do have specific parking diagrams that we put in every rental condo. This is where you're allowed to park with a picture. But if they park someplace else, but they say they allow 4 cars, if they park someplace else, SDR says, well, that's not our problem. And so that's one of the problems that I face today is that you only enforce the maximum number of cars, not where the cars park. And if there's a diagram, we could enforce it.
Make that enforceable.
I'll ask the staff, would this, if the diagram was included, would that allow the staff to cite the owner for a violation of the license?
Yeah, they wouldn't be operating their premises in accordance with the documentation of their license.
Okay.
And if there is no diagram provided, then there would be no violation? Or sometimes, like in a situation that was just commented on?
Well, I think a situation like this is where they don't have an excess number of cars, but they're parked in the front yard or, you know,
Well, are the parking spaces that they're not
spaces.
Somebody else's space.
Somebody else's space. Because we say, for instance, we say 2 cars in the garage and 2 cars in front of the garage door. But they park in a, what are those things called, where you turn around? Or they park in the fire lane, or they park, you know. They only have 2 cars, but
Let's enforce
they don't want to park in.
Well, no,
Can't
this
enforce
is,
it unless we have diagrams.
this is,
Well, if they're in a fire line, you can
Well,
enforce
the fire
it.
lane would be there.
So,
Yeah, I think the question is like, yes, you can do general parking enforcement if you have a parking patrol, but the question is it also an STR violation if they're regularly encouraging or allowing that?
and I think what we've been trying to do is have clear, equitable STR rules that are enforceable, that we can say, you have violated, now we're going to take action. So town manager and town clerk, do you think this proposal meets those objectives? It's just,
I do.
As proposed.
Also with single family townhomes.
Patty,
Meet those objectives, and as I said, if it doesn't,
then we learn.
then we learn. And I don't think they're necessarily, I think the vast majority of properties managed are not single family homes,
Right.
but are condominiums, so I don't think the burden on property management is anywhere near what it.
And to be clear, we are talking about both renewals and new.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Councilmember, take it now.
Awesome. I think we're getting to a,
Oh, wait, should we close down public?
Yeah, is there anybody else?
Is there any more public comment? Anyone online? Public comment is closed, and we're now into, the public hearing is closed, we're now into deliberation.
so it seems like we're getting to a compromise with this. A question I posed for the council and staff. Do we think that we should also talk about inclusion in that, the requirement for the parking plan or diagram to include units that have had complaints against them for parking violations?
I think that's something we can do as part of the renewal process and will do this
Without writing into this,
without running it in.
you have that authority already.
Yes, if there are violations, they're not guaranteed their license. And definitely,
Well, would there be a violation if there's a,
I'm sorry.
there is not guaranteed a violation if there's a complaint? Is that accurate?
Well, if it's a valid complaint, yes, there is a violation.
But what we heard from the public just a few minutes ago is that a lot of times there's not violations happening because it's not a violation yet.
Because they don't know we're supposed to park.
So what I'm trying to get at is if there's a property that doesn't fall under what we just talked about, single family homes, and they're getting a lot of complaints against them, I think we should look at requiring this parking diagram for those properties.
Isn't that what the
Actually, all the problems ones will be required to have it.
Because the bigger condos don't have.
Because we don't have this problem in the big condos.
So they're all covered.
Boy, I bet you we've got 9 o'clock.
With all these
Oh,
bugs.
no. Fix this.
Okay.
So can I have a motion? Councilmember Sullivan.
And I don't know the right words, but I do move that the suggested compromise of single home and condos be included in the requirement for.
So that language, if this is okay with the attorney, is after including a parking diagram, the words for all single family and townhome. For all single family homes and townhomes.
That's what I move.
It's been moved. Is there a second? I hear a second?
Sure, a second.
Second. Any further discussion? Councilmember Haganah.
Do we think that the definition, single family and townhomes is accurate enough to encompass what we're hoping for? Is there any standalone units that wouldn't fall under that have the parking issue?
Yeah, there is an issue. There are single family condominiums.
No?
Yeah, I mean.
It's not a single family
Our
home.
buildings are technically condos.
So single family
Yeah.
residence.
But they're single families and townhomes, but
It
technically.
hurts, and they're like 3.
So you might just have.
Yes,
Single family
we have
residence.
like 3 on it.
Yeah, or townhomes.
Townhome residences. Single
And I
family.
suspect there's others that are officially classified as condominiums, even though they're really townhomes.
Almost everything's classified as a condo.
Right?
But that can be handled.
So would you change? Was there a verbiage change that you would recommend?
Yes, community development director. Like how do we?
Could ask.
How do we differentiate between Canberra townhomes and Canberra condominiums?
Parking?
No, it's just definition. How are sanctuaries defined in our code?
There is a definition, there are several definitions in chapter 15 that define townhomes, single families, the various residential types.
Right, physical more so than just legal
I
demonstration.
mean, there's a verbal description of what it entails.
Okay, so single family and townhomes as defined by this section referred to.
Yeah, chapter in the land use and development code that identifies various types of residential uses.
So you could simply refer to it as defined in the land use development.
Correct.
All right.
So it's been seconded.
So moved and seconded. Is there a friendly amendment to what we've just said with the addition of as defined in the land use development code? Is that acceptable?
Are there any objections?
Yeah.
Good, so that's been accepted. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Kerr.
Approve.
Councilmember Martin.
Approve.
Councilmember Cornet.
Yes.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Approve.
Councilmember Quista.
Approve.
Councilmember Hagenow.
Approve.
Mayor Riley.
Approve.
There are 7 votes to approve.
But I know. Can eat. When you get a lot of- I don't know.
The next item on the agenda is the resolution appointing and setting terms for the first members of the Business Advisory Board, and I'll turn it over to the town manager.
Okay, and I'm going to turn this over to our town clerk, Nancy.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor, Town Council. My name is Maddie Steele. I'm the town clerk. In reference to Resolution 2025-30, this evening, we are bringing forward a resolution appointing and setting terms of the first members of the Town of Keystone Business Advisory Board. In terms of recruitment and outreach for this, we posted this about a month ago and left the application period open for a month. We reached out to everyone who had applied for a business license, as well as sending it out to our newsletter on several occasions and made that open to people. We received 6 applicants for positions, and we have recommended that we appoint all 6 of these applicants for the Business Advisory Commission. And then there is a small scrivener's error in the resolution itself in section 2, or in section 1 of the resolution. It said Open Space Materials Advisory Board, but it should say Business Advisory Board.
Now, can I bring forth something? We proposed the 6 members, or 6 people who apply as members. This does not mean that the Business Advisory Board has to stay at 6 members. The council can appoint additional members and expand the size at the time of such appointment.
Councilmember Hagenow.
Thank you. I had a question and I wasn't sure if there was any additional feedback on this, but I noticed that one of the candidates for today did not submit a letter of interest unless it was omitted by accident from the packet. And my question's related, A, did they submit a letter? And then B, if not, how would that selection process work and why were they chosen for 2 years over 1 year?
I can point this out exactly. Because I sat down with the GM of Keystone Resort, and I asked her to recommend a member on behalf of the resort for this committee, and she recommended Mark Kimball to us. I said he did not need to submit a letter of interest because I felt, and we don't disagree, but I felt it was vitally important that any business advisory have a representative from various sorts on the committee. They employ probably as many workers as every other business in this community, and it would be, I feel, an injustice to take the largest employer of the town and we're not talking the largest employer by, we're talking by orders of magnitude.
I would 100% agree with you that we need to be inclusive of Vail Resorts. I think it's also an injustice that we weren't able to hear the person's perspective on what's important for them for the Business Advisory Board. And I think that that for me is a major factor. I really want
I have to take all blame for that because, as I said, this person is a representative of Vail Resorts on this advisory board, so the personal opinions are on this board will be the opinions of Vail Resorts, not necessarily market.
Councilmember Quista.
I mean, first I want to express being grateful for all the applicants. But I don't think we should be hasty about filling these spots. I was pretty underwhelmed by the selection and maybe how evasive people were in terms of their actual interest in Keystone. It doesn't seem like we have, one person claimed to be a resident, is not a resident. And I just feel like, yes, we need this advisory council. We've expressed in the past, we should not be reserving a seat for Vail Resorts on any of our committees or boards. I felt like the town council was pretty direct about that. So I'm pretty uncomfortable with the fact that Vail Resorts candidate didn't have to go through the same channels as everybody else. And I understand you took responsibility for that, but that's something that I feel very strongly about and wanted to again reiterate after council member Hagenow mentioned it. I don't think we should just put people on councils because they're interested. And yes, we have 6 interesting candidates right now. And if we have a few more, we could add, but it just doesn't seem very deliberate or conscious of us to do so. Because I was so disappointed with the pool and lack of actual residents / business owners who have a longer tenure in Keystone. I did reach out to several other residents in Keystone who are established business members, and we have additional candidates. And I propose that even if we go forward with the Business Advisory Council, that we postpone appointing any members until we have a better grasp on people's qualifications and everyone having submitted some sort of testimony about why they're interested in what their background is, other than being just employed by Vail Resorts.
The thoughts, Councilmember Permit.
Kimball's Food and Beverage. Okay. How many people here knew that? Some did, some didn't, but this is why it would be appropriate for anyone who wishes to participate.
He's not food and beverage, he's daily operations.
Okay, see, I didn't even know.
You look them up.
See, this is exactly why everyone needs to submit a letter of interest. We should understand who we're bringing on board to advise us, not just have them be ordained by the esteemed COO, and she is esteemed. But I do think we should know who's coming to us. I have to echo the thought that I was kind of, it wasn't that any individual on here was unimpressive. The turnout of interest in these letters was not very large and not necessarily very diverse. And some of them are only here because they were specifically requested. So I'm excited for the idea that we've actually generated some more, because there's a lot of small businesses here. Where are they? There's maybe one here, unless you count like some folks who are running some interesting marketing firms. That's really cool. But where's all the storefront businesses? So I'm excited to hear that there's more candidates out there. And it's not that we might not accept all 6 of these folks. We might. They might be awesome. They might be the best choices, but to hear that there's more folks out there, I would be enthusiastic to consider them as well.
Staff has no problem pushing up the creation of this committee.
I guess the question I would ask, do you have a firm commitment that they're going to apply?
2 of them.
Sure.
And
Alan Blado, who owns Liquid Descent out of Idaho Springs and Kremling, has been a longtime resident, is actually a resident and raising his kids here. And Justin Slezak from Steep has interest.
And I'll give Mark some, you will.
I'll give you an example. Justin Slezak, I reached out to first.
I found, I just want to see it.
Yeah, he's been here as long as I have. So.
Cool.
So
I want some residents on this board.
yeah.
One additional comment, if I may. Back to the comment, and I don't want to pretend like I'm quoting you, Mr. Manager, but you had said that the representative from Vail Resorts would be the voice of Vail Resorts. I don't like that, and I don't like that because Vail Resorts already has dedicated time where they get to meet with you and the mayor. They have seats at the table in various aspects, and I think that we should really be trying to get people that are coming in with experience in the business community and not just towing the company line in another form.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just my perspective.
Is it me?
Councilmember. Sure.
So I concur with a lot of what's been said. First of all, we've been trying to get this going since December, so I'm excited to finally see some light. I'm very excited when someone wants to serve on a committee with this town, and that's very important. However, I do think we should be equitable. So there are two people who gave us letters of interest without even specifying what they're, like one discussed generally what the business is, didn't identify the name of the business, which sadly makes me say, what?
Yeah.
Could be exactly the person we're looking for, I'm not sure. So what if we go back to Kimball and the last two and say, we'd like you to clarify how your business experience would be helpful and why you're still interested.
So can I recommend?
And also reach out to these. I'm very disappointed we don't have any retailers on here, so.
So let's table this.
Good. Is it within your ability to pull this off? Okay, thank you.
And so you will reach out to, you will reopen the application period and with the intent of allowing other folks to apply. And is it unreasonable to expect that at the next council meeting, after that has been reopened, that you will provide a updated recommendation based on all of the applicants, including updating providing the additional guidance for the information that we're looking for from the applicants, so we have an idea of what businesses, if they're a business owner, what businesses they represent, and why they're interested in this. Some of the folks did, some of we got partial. It was, I agree, it was very sketchy information.
Okay.
So,
Doesn't mean we're not interested. So thank you for moving forward on this.
okay.
Sounds like.
So I need to take a motion to table this until the next council meeting.
I don't think you need to do that. I think the direction to the staff is clear that that's what you need to do. And is it the next meeting?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Will you be able to get this done by the next meeting?
Our
Okay.
next meeting might be awfully quick, maybe first meeting next.
This means September. Fine. Is that okay with that?
I will communicate with the other people who expressed interest.
Yeah.
All right. The next item of business is the discussion of fire impact fees.
Okay, I will go real quickly on this. It should be, we discussed this in a workshop. On August 19th, the fire district was going to vote on a resolution without the new impact fees. They justified the town's new studies. Personally, as town manager, I don't feel it's necessarily our position to be telling them what they should and shouldn't be charging based upon the studies. That being said, as you said, they did not exempt government buildings or affordable housing from the impact fees. I think it is your role as the council to express that. I think the best way to express that would be a letter from the town. What I would really like is a vote of the council affirming that we think government buildings and affordable housing, affordable deed restricted housing should be exempted.
Is there precedent for that? Well, are we going on a limb here? I just want to know if you have anything to back our
Can there
recommendation.
be precedent when this impact fee is brand new? It was.
From other fire districts.
I think the precedent for me on that is government built, like I look at it as almost, not a tax, and I know it's not a tax, but I look at it as almost like a tax, right? And government buildings are tax exempt. So I would almost view it as.
And the law allowing them to do this actually allows specifically, I believe the attorney can back me up, allows them to exempt affordable housing.
And I'll ask the attorney the same question, is that I believe the law also required them to come to us, which they did, and ask for our comments. So,
Right, they may not implement your comments, so.
We understand.
But I'd rather in the letter state that the council unanimously requests that you.
So if that's acceptable, can I have a motion? No, I need, we have to do a formal vote.
I move to formally give comments to the instruct the manager to draft a letter to the fire authorities that we would request affordable housing and government buildings to be taxed, or to be exempt from the fire impact fees.
Second.
Okay, second, any discussion? All those in,
Sorry, one quick, do we want to try to include nonprofits such as the Keystone Science School in this request?
Their HOAs are nonprofits.
I'm good as,
Okay,
I'm good as is then.
I was ready.
so, given that, any other discussion? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor of the resolution as stated, raise your hands. Opposed, I believe the council has unanimously approved the direction to staff. The next item on the agenda is TOK 25-011. And Mr. Town Manager?
I will let our community development director,
And I'm going to defer to Jessica Hertzberg, who actually reviewed this application. And I guess I'm going to ask, are there specific questions regarding this? Because this procedure is really just to see if you want to call up and hear the application.
Yeah, there were specific questions I had, and for the sake of time, I can call those out now to be addressed. I noticed several discrepancies in the operation plan and application that were provided by this expedition in Colorado. Specifically, it called out that there would be 80 participants in the operations plan versus 40 on the application. It also specifically said 20 volunteers and staff in the ops plan and 10 in the application. And then it also misstated the cost of participation for the participants. None of the possible breakdowns for the cost equaled the $825 mentioned in the application. My concern for this is I would like to ensure that we've done our due diligence, that other aspects of the plan, notably trash removal and impact on our community, is actually believable because of the discrepancies that are noticed in the application and ops plan.
Seriously, I noticed those discrepancies, if you will, from the application to subsequent discussions that Jessica and myself have had with the applicant. And in every case that I am aware, it is the smaller number. Instead of, for instance, instead of 80, there are going to be 40 registered runners or bikers or whatever. So I believe what happened is the applicant, and Jessica, you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, the application came in first because that was the first draft of it, if you will, and that was what they had hoped to get. In actuality, the numbers are about half. So your concerns also with regards to compliance with the special events, trash cleanup and things like that, that will be monitored and enforced. So if there is a problem, for instance, signage, they would signage up. In fact, in this case, there is no signage up, and they're not allowed to wait on the rec path or whatever. We're pretty cognizant of this. And in addition, keep in mind that we are a very small segment of this part. So if they don't abide, they're going to have several jurisdictions after them. So I feel comfortable that this will indeed work and is conditioned appropriately.
Amazing, thank you.
Any comments? Councilmember Kerr.
Quick question for future reference. Whenever there's an event like this and you say we'll monitor, does this mean one of our staffers has to come out on a Sunday evening or something like that to check on that? I just want to know this as we go forward.
we're making Lindsay run.
The real answer.
It is on a complaint basis.
Okay.
Again, we have to use a degree of common sense.
That's what I wanted to know.
This is 40 individuals that are going to be running or biking through our town over a period of 4 days.
Which is significantly less than we usually get anyway.
For instance, and it's a very valid point, the Courage Classic or the Triple Bypass or something of that magnitude, we do some monitoring if we suspect there is going to be a problem. And that is multi-jurisdictional.
Okay, I just want to recognize the work. Thanks.
Yes. Okay. Right. Any other comments? So the question, I guess the question is, do we want to call this up for a hearing?
You could just have a motion to approve it. I mean,
I would be comfortable.
Oh, we don't even need that because it's already been approved. Our only
Well,
action here is to call it up.
I mean, it's on the consent agenda, I think, it's not approval, but it's kind of passing on it. Hold it off the consent agenda.
So what would the motion be?
To approve.
No, we're not approving. It's already been approved. The question is, do we call it up?
No,
Well, I think we know that. What's
I
what's
just
the
want to know
process?
what the question is.
Right, I understand. I'm trying to think of what, you're not comfortable approving it. It's a motion to
Do nothing.
pass on
On the call
yeah.
up. Okay.
I would move to pass on the call up of TOK 25-11.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Then the motion is carried. And the next item on the agenda is the
Like a bunch of silly bells.
Please stop, we didn't even.
memorandum of understanding on street addressing.
No, we already did that.
Oh, that, yeah,
Decided not to take it off.
so the next item is the report of the town manager staff.
Okay, so I'll make this quick. Police, he'll be here probably our next meeting, and he'll be at KOA owners. I sent out his report from the month of July, probably earlier today, and we're at stage 2 fire. Can't turn the fire off, you can't have it. Clerk, STR renewals will start August 25th. We're hoping our new website will be up September 15th. Community development permits and inquiries are actually high throughout the community, and we're plugging ahead to get that comp planned up. Public Works, as you've seen, we have a sidewalk going in, we have a road going in, we have good things happening. As soon as the curb and gutter is fixed, CDOT is going to do some milling and paving on Highway 6. And after they finish that, we will have AP come in and do the little bits they don't get and those potholes that are really starting to get annoying at the end of West Keystone and Soda Ridge Road. And sorry, I'm waving, that's the sun that's going there. Finance, our June sales tax was up 12% over projections and over last year. And we're working on the budget. We've got, we're really close to our finished first draft here, and it's looking healthy. Okay, now all sorts of good news here. Got an email today from CDOT. They want to sit down with me next week to discuss the Razor Drive intersection. That was kind of out of the blue. This is them requesting the talk at this time. So I have some confidence that hopefully they found some cash. CPW, the guy administering the bear-proof containers, has recommended for approval $40,000 for us. He tells me it's technically not a done thing yet, but he said,
Very close.
this is a done deal, we can start planning. Our destination blueprint Grant from OEDIT is moving forward with data gathering. They're planning a community workshop in late October. Town Hall, the offer was made on the Keystone Center. They will be meeting, not their board, but their executives will be meeting later this week to discuss it and get it to the board. So things are moving along very well on that. Oh, the roads report, as I said, we finally got our conditional roads report. It'll take some formatting to make it more understandable to everyone. As soon as I get that done, we'll get that out to you. I'm a bit surprised at the relatively good condition of
So are we.
some of our, a big majority of our.
That's good.
roads. Okay, speed bumps in Loveland Passville.
Thank you.
I did some serious research, including at the Institute of Transportation Engineers and through the Federal Highway Administration. And due to the layout of the roads in Loveland Pass Village, the tight intersections, tight corners, speed bumps are by both the Federal Highway Administration and the Institute of Transportation Engineers not recommended in a situation like that. So we'll be looking at different ways of making sure speed is controlled in there. And had a good meeting with the Summit Historical Society, who wants to help contribute to our sesquicentennial, centennial celebrations coming up next year.
Show up.
By helping us design, I don't want to say historical, but historical informative signage that we can put along the community pathway, you know, like across from the science school, which was the site of the original lumber mill, things like that. Maybe one talking about the history of the ski area.
So they're going to do the historical research and we will decide about paying for the signs.
Exactly.
They're not inexpensive.
That are just in disrepair and faded. Do we know the source of those signs and if that material is available so they don't have to reinvent the wheel?
No,
Okay.
but I'll look into that. No, the doing is, I don't know, but I'll look into it.
On that real quick, is there a way that we can take those interpretive signs and make them so they're longer lasting than just next year?
Oh, gosh, yeah, my plan is a permanent,
Here's a cool history fact about Keystone.
yeah, you're coming along with that. And that's it for my manager's report. Thank you for letting me take a really nice vacation. It was not very restful and it's really nice to have cell service for like 10 minutes during an entire week time. It was.
Could I ask one thing related to the report with the chief's report that you sent out from the calls for service?
Yeah,
Could you send us a T for what the chart at the top means?
okay,
TRSTOP, I have no idea what that means.
traffic stop.
Traffic stuff, yeah.
Traffic stop.
Cool.
We're here for
Thank
you.
you.
What I would suggest for council on the chief report is if there's other information you would like to see, I'd recommend you contact the town, send an email to the town manager indicating that that's the information you would like to see and follow on reports. So, Councilmember Kerr.
I have 3 quick questions on past things you've said. First of all, it was either 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, or before that, you mentioned that the police were looking into suspected arson in Keystone.
They're still.
Did you get to, okay. How many business licenses did we?
Permit licenses, right now we have 55.
55. And does staff have any concern about how that's going? Do we think we're getting them?
There are several licenses that are pending right now as we are figuring out and getting everything sorted out with the Department of Revenue and just making sure that everything's lined up with the sales tax numbers.
Okay, smart move. And last, I don't know if this is legit, but I wonder if you can update us on the Excel proposal and the responses of the other Summit County entities.
Okay, as we discussed last time, the proposed settlement, the PUC evidentiary hearing started today.
Uh-huh.
Went from 9 o'clock until approximately 5 o'clock. I didn't catch the very end. I don't know if that's being continued. Everyone is supporting the settlement,
Okay.
except for
Mm.
the Colorado utility advocate. And they are pushing for the completely ridiculous and unfair pricing schedule. What I've seen of the hearing, it's hard to get a read on the commissioner, but the fact that everyone else, including all the environmental groups, are on board with the settlement as proposed is a good sign.
We had agreed that we would fund the attorney and the expert or something like that. Are they there? Did they go anywhere? What, anyway?
They have to.
Okay, that's what I figured. So that's not money coming back.
That's not money coming back, but it is going to be, it's significantly less.
There's no
If they accept,
follow.
if the PUC accepts the settlement.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions for the manager? Now
I have one.
go ahead.
Do we have any update from CDOT on the no unmuffled Jake brake signs?
Or they keep saying they're gonna be putting it in. It's quite possible maybe when they're out here doing the road maintenance and repairs that might be. We call them weekly. We call them.
Any other questions for the manager? All right, next item is report of mayor and council. Council members have anything they want to bring up? Councilmember Hagenau?
Thank you. I will read this super fast because I know it was sent as a one-way communication to y'all. But the community meeting, the beers with council was really successful. We had about 15 residents, including full-time and second homeowners. Some key items that were fed back to us was the desire for Firewise designation, lodging tax transparency. It was basically related to from February to June of 2024, where that money went. That constituent or that person has been answered directly via email on that. Trail maintenance in town, some residents felt like along the rec path, there's been diminished services for overgrown areas. Felt the same way about noxious weed control, felt that there was some more increased investment needed for that. Wanted some insight into the PUD process and potentially long-term plans to eliminate the PUD. The constituents said it might be a 25-year process to be able to do that. The public land resolution concerns, there was some concerns about the verbiage of the summary of the resolution. This constituent also did not read the full resolution, but they were concerned about the summary that was emailed out. Meeting accessibility, felt that there was some need to have the full calendar posted on the website. Transportation improvements, including express routes between work centers and residential neighborhoods during peak hours. There was some concern about police presence in town, and also some comments on the US 6 project. And then lastly, there was some feedback given directly to me by some folks that live in town about the SE group at the Bluegrass and Beer Festival. They felt that the presentation of the booth might not be the best look and visibility for the town, and suggested that we look into some branded aspects, such as a branded tent or some signs for any future public presence, as it didn't look the best. And then also there was a proposed trail being put in by the landfill. It's called the Bobsled Trail. It's just outside our town boundaries, but is still in close proximity to our town. And that's going through the open space group with the county. And I will let Aaron or Councilmember talk more about it if you would like. Thank you.
Go ahead.
As you know, the Tenderfoot Meadows Open Space, also known as Dump Trails, is a parcel of land owned by county open space, kind of bounded by Highway 6 and the dump and Cemetery Road, and borders the motocross track. Is close to the power substation and the shooting range, and contains several trails that offer direct connection, walk to trail access for many of our neighborhoods. Notable for controversial things such as seasonal closures that were new last year. SCOMBA, which is the local mountain bike association, I understand went to the county open space and proposed the construction of some trails there that were aimed at really bringing some intermediate mountain bikers and beginner mountain bikers into the area with good trails that were specially featured for them. And I understand that there was a lot of discussion about that, but it passed tonight.
Oh, is it?
For him. That's the word that I got from text message, so that's good news.
Good job.
I compliment all the people who helped propose that and the county open space for approving it, because I knew there were some people raising concerns about any new trail construction.
Is this for this summer or for a future?
I would guess they would build it next summer, but I'm not in charge of anything. I'm just getting the information because I'm super interested.
Yeah.
If it gets funded by the county commissioners.
Oh.
I'm not sure but I don't know that it's an open space funded project. It's more they needed permission to build it on the open space land, but it might actually be done by some form of like grant and the Mountain Bike Association. But I'm not an expert on where the funding is.
What about good news?
But I think things like this are really good for our community. We have certainly seen where there has been tremendous investment in trail infrastructure by our neighboring towns and by the county in areas abutting those towns, almost all on the west side of the county. I think we need to see some more of that investment around here because that's what our residents and visitors like. We live here because we love the mountains, and anything that like improves that experience and provides trails for people to progress and introduce themselves on and gets the whole gamut of trail users out there able to enjoy different things and also reduce trail conflict by taking different users and not putting them opposed to each other. Hey, fast mountain bikers are going down the hill on that trail, so they're not buzzing the hikers. That's a great thing, in my opinion. Almost all other states and areas, apart from right around here, that have a whole lot of trail users have gone to directional trails and some use segregation in trails. We do even see it up on, like, say, the El Pass, where you have a motorized and non-motorized side. But seeing some of these newer ideas coming forth could help transform our community and continue to make this place great for the future we want to see for our residents and ourselves and our visitors.
Anything else? From the manager and mayor's meeting this week, major discussion on nicotine tax and how that's going to be, what the impact is on the various programs. As you maybe remember, nicotine tax supported early childhood care program and STEPS program. The impact it had tobacco cessation program, and it also has associated with it support for the health and wellness community nonprofits in Summit County. The county is stepping up, it appears, to fund early childhood solely out of Strong Futures Fund starting in 26 and beyond, which is good news. The managers are putting together a new IGA for the nicotine tax, and their proposal is to come up with a split on that will fund the cessation program and the health services and wellness programs. We should be seeing that or the town manager should be seeing that sometime in the near future. And it would preliminary look like is about a 300,000 increase in the cessation, not the cessation, but the health, health and social services programs that are going, but they would also be increasing the eligibility to apply for those from nonprofits. From right now, it's basically 3 to all nonprofits that are in that area, and that would be administered through the IGA. We'll see that when it comes forward. We discussed also the RTA issue. You saw it was removed from the agenda, but the MOU will be coming to us for approval, which will allow us to participate in the development of an RTA proposal and get our input in, but it's not going to cost us anything. And it gets us a seat at the table. It doesn't commit us to go forward in the future. It just gets us an opportunity to have a say in what's in it. It looks like right now, Colorado Mountain College may be the only entity in Summit County that will have a tax issue on the ballot this year in November. Other folks are pulling back on putting a ballot issue out. They may have ballot issues coming up in 26 and 27. And that's the mayor and manager meeting. The next HOA meeting that we have is August 23rd. That's a virtual meeting with Flying Dutchman. I'm planning to attend that. If anyone else would like to attend, let me know, and we'll get you onto the list so you can get all the information for sign in. Then we can work together on how we want to handle the presentation. On September 20th, the Keystone Owners Association is having their annual meeting. It's at 10 a.m. It's at 10 a.m. and it's going to be in Warren Station. Right now, the town manager is lined up. The police chief is lined up to come in to be part of that group for the discussions. And I'm looking for someone from the council. I think Councilmember Sullivan is going to volunteer. Unfortunately, I have an HOA meeting right on top of that for the first time ever since they've moved their date. And I'm not going to be able to attend that. Otherwise, I would have. If anyone else would like to go, please let me know and let Dan know so I can get it on our list of understanding.
I can do that.
The 20th September.
Where are you going?
The 26th, you said?
20th.
20th.
Saturday, the 20th.
Okay, 26th.
10 a.m. at Warden Station. I can do that too.
It'd be 10 a.m. Warren Station.
Is that all right with you?
Yeah, and let you guys.
That's all I'm looking for.
You guys can coordinate how you want to handle the presentation. On
Talking.
the 21st of September, which is a Sunday, which is really screwy. Settlers Creek Townhomes is having theirs at Minnie's Cabin over in Settlers Creek. Dan right now is signed up, I believe, for that on the 21st
What time is it?
of
11 o'clock.
7 o'clock. And I guess I would expect perhaps the town manager to be attending that, and anyone else, again, let me know, and I will, I'll coordinate that. We'll get it coordinated with Dan. And last question is, who all is going to the cast meeting next week in Estes Park? We have 2 of us going. All right, that way we can know to work together, Joe. And that's all I had.
With you. With you.
So is there, now we're moving on to other matters. Is there any matter a council member would like to bring up? Councilmember Kerr.
Very simple. I think we need to put on the agenda to discuss what we're going to do at the cast meeting that we're hosting in early October, right? Not tonight, but soon.
We can talk about it.
Member Hagan.
And I know this has been a conversation brought up before, but some constituents have again voiced desires to work with Vail Resorts on seeing if we can have a 7-day-a-week operation structure. And I know that that's something we're working on, but they voiced it again.
That's a,
Wait, 7 days.
by having out 7 days a week,
Yes.
as well as the center.
Yes.
We constantly express our desire that they stay open as much as possible. However, as a town, we have to be careful not to cross the line between requesting something of a business and telling people how to operate their own businesses.
Understood.
That's a regular discussion.
Yeah.
I plan to bring up at the next one with Shannon, the issue of the Adventure Center, which is only open 5 days a week, as well in Lakeside Village. And I found out today that the stables for the trail rides is closed this year.
Yeah. Oh, why?
Long story.
What?
The response I got was long story.
So we will, the declining services offered by the resort is something again that we'll bring up to the GM. And this budget we're in, we'll go into this next budget, which starts in August for them, will be our GM's first budget that she had in influence. We are continuing to put that pressure. Other matters? Anything else? Councilman Permit.
Fairly simple request. We have an open space and trails committee. The bylaws do allow a representative from council not voting. I respectfully request that I be in that role.
You're here.
All right. Is there a thumbs up for that for the council? You've got it.
Thank you.
All right, Councilman Kerr.
I just want to know, we got this handout about National Register. I think the implication is this Historical Society wants us to consider getting some property in Keystone, which name of which I forget. What do you want us to do with this?
Well, this came from Councilman.
Oh.
I went to the 2-hour meeting they had a week or so ago. And it was basically the process of get on the historical register. So that was the handout that they had provided.
Okay.
So it just has some bullet points, some contacts. It is about a 1-year process. They say sometimes you don't always get approved the first time around. But there's a lot of support help out there if someone wants to identify something and go through the process and the paperwork, that they are willing to work with the town, individuals, whomever.
Did they identify the property that is in Keystone? Did it not come up?
No.
There's one.
I mean, other than the depot, we talked about, but other stuff, but they're available to help us with resources to try and find something, and identify stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other business? Other matters to bring up? In that case, we are now down to the point of adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Moved, is there a second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.